Hello, everyone, and good morning. Welcome back to another good old rendition of Comm107. Today, we're going to be looking over our group speeches in what is in the model, what is being presented, and what is going to be asked of you. There are four key components to it. One is going to be the small group outline. It is just one person, and I'm going to reiterate this: one person only needs to do this in your group, which will be assigned this upcoming weekend. Needs to just write the entire outline themselves following the steps that are listed here for the most part. It is pretty much like an outline like every other outline that you've turned in. As long as you turn it in, it'll be good for the most part. I don't spend a lot of time looking at the outlines. I just need to make sure everyone's getting it done because it's a university mandated thing. And so we need to just make sure that it is being turned in for the most part. And so I wouldn't put too much thought into it. I wouldn't put too much work into it. I would make sure that I delegate one person to be in charge of it and have them be the person that goes over and handles all of the hard parts. And so with that said, we have a few more things we need to work on. The next is going to be a small group peer evaluation. This is just primarily to kind of make sure that everyone in your group did the work. So when you're done with the project, you do, or briefly when you're about to turn in the project, you let me know through the small group evaluation who was doing well and who wasn't doing well with your group effort or group contact. So that gives me kind of a better understanding of when I'm doing grading of who to be more like lenient towards if say a project isn't very good because somebody just checked out and didn't do like a third of the work, which is always a fear that we have when we have group projects, but it's something that we can totally do and totally get done for the most part. Up next is the actual work contract. We're just going to sign this in class one day, so I wouldn't worry about it too much. We're just literally going to have a day where you meet with your group mates. It's probably going to be this upcoming Wednesday, but I'm not super positive on that yet, so don't 100% take my word for it. I will assign it that day, so you could probably just do that day. That is just to make sure that everybody in your group has seen and acknowledged like a plan that you're going to put together to be able to get this project done and how you're going to be able to work together. And last off is the actual small group presentation itself. Traditionally, I usually have about 5 to 6 people per group in each of these groups to kind of complete the overarching task. The idea for the small group presentation is a 10-minute presentation total. So if you have 5 people in your group, that's going to be approximately 2 minutes of each individual talking. We need to make sure each individual has a chance to talk. And since it's 18 to 20 minutes total, that means that 5 or 10 people or the 5 to 6 people really need to come together, really need to be on the same page. And kind of what I would argue is the easiest way is use things like Google Slides, Google Docs to create a singularized kind of understanding of what you're going to argue and what you're going to say. Now, the total topic, or let me restart. Sorry, the coffee is still kicking in. 8 o'clock in the morning, or the 8 o'clock morning is not my greatest time for using words, and my capacity to communicate is not where it needs to be yet. But what you need to do is you need to identify a problem that is occurring in the world and create 3 potential solutions to that problem. And so it can be a problem in a local place. It could be something such as the bay in Maryland is becoming kind of gross and we need to clean it, or it could be climate change, something big and nebulous that you could take a different kind of approach to, or it could be a problem such as like economic recovery. Say you have a bunch of business people in your grouping and you want to talk about economics together, or it could be any problem that you can functionally muster. Maybe universities should mandate doing X, Y, or Z, or maybe classes should be available in high school because the problem exists in the first place. And then you come up with 3 solutions. And those 3 solutions usually get mandated to, or those 3 solutions could be anything that are like highly practical to very kind of impractical things when you try to respond to the question. As long as you're doing some research and making some arguments for it, I'm totally okay with whatever solutions that you potentially come up with. So say you wanted to have climate change as your problem. The first way in which you could try to remedy climate change is maybe stronger business regulations. The second one you could make is just like an argument on behalf of a personal ecological footprint that we need to lower. And the third one could be something along the lines of maybe we need mass transit systems built in the United States to lower individual transportation on a daily, regular basis. Those could be a way in which you put a project together through that kind of like problem, three solutions dichotomy, throw an intro and conclusion onto it, and you're going to be innately done. You will need a presentation aid. Everyone, and I'm talking everyone, all 100% of the times I've seen a group project get done have used something like a PowerPoint or Google Slides. That is just what I would recommend because it helps everyone keep on track, and so everyone kind of knows what they're going to be doing. The libertarian term division of labor is really important here because you know how to like kind of even it up and say, okay, I know who's going to be in charge of X, I know who's going to be in charge of Y, I know who's going to be in charge of Z, could be a good way in which you kind of think about or at least internalize what you're going to be doing whenever you're going to be working kind of like towards finishing the project and saying to yourself, okay, Kyle's doing X, he's doing Y, he's doing Z. And so having a presentation aid is very good for that, at least if you're using Google Slides, because you can be like, okay, these slides have been included. I know Kyle is done with his work. I can continue working on Y. Somebody's missing over here on Z. Maybe Debbie didn't quite get it done, so you can shoot her an email or something in like a group chat to say, hey, let's get this done. You'll need 10 citations total, and that's broken up over all 5 or 6 of you, so that's only really approximately 2 citations each for each of your sections. The way traditionally people break up this speech, and it's usually based upon my recommendation, is I always tell the groups to have one person do the intro, one person do the conclusion, one person do the problem, and one person each do the kind of like solutions. And you can sometimes group up the solutions if, say, for instance, you don't have enough people to make that model work. For instance, your group doesn't have 6 people, it has 5 people instead. Maybe one of you needs to do either the intro and conclusion, or maybe that you just do 2 of the solutions is the easiest way in which you can break it up and have it be kind of like, have it kind of be easy so that everyone has to only really focus in on their one own task. You can use Zoom. Most people use Zoom for this. You can totally use Panopto if somebody in your group wants to be the designated video editor and just put all of the kind of like independent videos together and then send them to me. The third option that you can have for recording wise is, and I hate this option, but if you have to do it, I totally understand. If you all independently send it to me, that also works. You just need to make a note that you're doing that because I sometimes lose track over who's over in what group. So please try to do either the first one, which is either all record on Zoom together, or second is just have somebody in charge of editing them together. If you have to do the third step of just like, okay, everyone's just going to independently send them in, do it, but it is not my favorite, so please do your best to not have to do it. The actual rubric of it itself is pretty much the same as what we've been doing earlier. I'll talk about if there's any distinctions that I can think of as I continue to look at them. The first is going to be the actual virtual group delivery. What I look for here is kind of the overall delivery score of each of the independent like videos that come towards me to say, hey, okay, this person did really good on the intro, but the person that we transitioned to in the body was not quite as strong. And how do we kind of like relate to one another when we're putting all of it together? And so I don't want to take off points for any individuals. Maybe if you have a group member who is not a strong deliverer, so to say, I'm not going to take off points because one person wasn't very good at it on your sheet. I will do it more so on their sheet, independently speaking. The only time that the group delivery is going to be a little bit different is on how the presentation actually works. If you have strong transitions from your intro to your kind of first speech, or you're from your intro into the problem, and from the problem into the solutions, and to each of the independent solutions, and into the conclusion, is also something that you need to think about when you're doing the virtual delivery to make sure that you are introducing the next speaker, or at least allowing the next speaker time to kind of naturally transition into the conversation so it doesn't feel as forced as it could potentially be. The next up is the group argument. That is just like, did you have a clear argument? Did you have a clear thesis? Were there some main points backed up by some evidence, warranted argument, and provide kind of like a logical logos understanding or rationality to make arguments on behalf of what you wanted to have happen in the first place. The next up is your organizational skills. skills. That's just like your transitions, bodies, conclusions, and transitions between main points. It's functionally the same as we've been doing all semester. Information literacy, did you have your 10 sources? Did you set your 10 sources? You do that, claim data warrant, you are good to go. The next up is actually an independent and a little bit of a different one. This is going to be your question and answer session. And historically in the past, I've done this live, but this semester I'm going to do it a little bit different. I'm going to make independent groups on your and each of your independent groups will have group pages attached to them. In there will be an innate discussion board. On that discussion board, after you turn in your kind of like group project, I'm going to respond to your group project with 5 independent questions. And then I ask for each of your group mates or you themselves to just answer those questions. And you do that in writing. You don't do that in speaking. You don't have to make a secondary video. I just need you to respond to the questions that I'm asking. And then that is when I start grading the overarching project itself to make sure that everything is kind of completed. And so you can have one person do all of the answers, or you can have as many people do as many of the answers as you want. That is totally your group's prerogative for how you have it signed up. As long as I have answers to the questions that I ask, you will be good to go. A secondary thought is that normally when I do questions and answer sessions, which we're going to have a whole day on asking good questions and asking good answers, or at least giving good answers. And what I generally do is I ask 4 really easy questions that you'll probably be able to answer in like a couple minutes. And then I ask one really hard question, and I usually just embed it in there because I sometimes get bored and have a internal dialogue going in the back of my head that's like, I'm going to ask a really stubbornly hard question and make them do a little bit more research. And so there will be that question. And so be kind of prepared for that. And maybe you need to have a conversation with your group about how to answer that. But that is not done in the video. I want to reiterate that because I usually get that question just to make sure that we are on the same page. Next up is the presentation aid. That's just your visuals. Was it good? Did it detract? Was there too much information on the writing on the walls that made it hard for me to listen to the speech? Or was there just nothing going on whatsoever, and so it was kind of bland and boring, are all kind of the considerations that I make in the back of my head when I am looking at the presentation aid, as you already know. Last up is time. Stay within your time limits. Try not to go over the 12-minute mark because this is a longer speech. The longer I'm more lenient with time on this speech, just mainly because there's only like 4 per class. And so if you go like a minute or 2 over, I'm really not that concerned about it. Or if you're like 30 seconds under, that's totally fine. If you're under by over a minute, that's when I start to go, okay, come on, you can totally have one person get another like minute of speech time in. And that is the time in which I will start to consider removing points from the overarching project. And so that is kind of what I wanted to discuss today, at least with the overarching small group presentation and small group presentation models. If you have any questions on that, please email me. And I am going to put groups together on Sunday. So if you do have an insistence on who you want in your group, I've had one person email me so far. I will do my best to make sure you get your group mates that are in your section. Please do not email me people in other sections that you may know, because that just creates a lot of internalized problems over on my end of trying to coordinate people working at the same time together. That's functionally it. If you have any questions, please email me. We will try to have our first group meeting, group day on our upcoming class on this upcoming Wednesday. And I hope everyone's having a fantastic weekend. I'm going to continue grading the persuasive speeches. I'm going to be a little bit slower. Well, I'm already slow, as you already know, but I'm going to be a little bit slow on grading these as I've come to learn. But I'm trying to get at least 10 done a day for the most part, and I've been on pace so far. So if you haven't gotten yours back yet, you are in the lower half, and I would be checking over the course of the next week, and I should have some grade and some formative feedback on it. If there's any outstanding grades in the class, please make sure you let me know and keep me updated on anything that could potentially be going wrong, and we will do our best to work and make sure we get everything done. We are in the end game of the semester, team. We are doing it. We are living our best lives, or at least we're making it through whatever the hypothetical best life scenario or metaphor was meant to be. I apologize again if I was not very good with words today, but 8 a.m. and cups of coffee have not been doing me kind yet. Okay, thank you, and have a good morning or afternoon or day or whenever you're watching this.